Amid controversy and praise, the megacrime prison CECOT in El Salvador has become Nayib Bukele's stronghold for combating crime. But behind its imposing walls lie shocking stories of abuse and discrimination, especially toward gay inmates. Why this prison has generated so much commotion and controversy. Stay with us until the end of the video to find out. Before we begin, leave your registration with the like button and subscribe to our stories. They'll surely catch you. Now, activate the bell so we can begin. The CECOT Terrorism Confinement Center, the maximum security prison in El Salvador, the Alcatraz of Central America, opened exactly 1 year ago. Nayib Bukele's eyes shine when he talks about this place. In just 20 months, the young president has wiped out the two main gangs, the Mara Salvatrucha and the Neighborhood 18, with a regime of exception that has brought the army to the streets and its sold-out constitutional freedoms, has arrested more than 70,000 people, has locked up young people in entire neighborhoods that were previously impossible to enter without risking their lives. The government has released videos that appear to have been edited by Francis Ford. The sensation of dystopian reality they convey is fascinating. They are uncomfortable to watch, but at the same time, it is not easy to look away. Bukele has become immensely popular for this heavy-handed policy, both inside and outside his borders. With 85% of the votes on Sunday, he won the presidential elections that will keep him in power for another 5 years. The opposition has been reduced to ashes. Salvadorans, relieved after decades of violence, have given him absolute power. He has used this notoriety to perpetrate an authoritarian drift with which he controls the judiciary and the armed forces, which will soon increase fivefold. Thus, this small nation has gone from having the highest homicide rate in the world to one of the lowest in the Buck region. The impenetrability and ostentation of this hermetic prison match the personality of a president prone to megalomania. To access the CECOT, you must pass 4 positions, placed in large, desolate concrete rooms. Officials, their faces covered and in a state of squalor, search you all over your body. They ask you to place your hands behind your neck. They ask if you have tattoos. The security arches have X-rays that reveal the intestines. The sound of the bolts on the iron doors grows resounding. Little by little, a feeling of confinement tightens your throat. There are 8 modules with an undetermined number of prisoners whose capacity the authorities refuse to specify are 40,000. No one who entered handcuffed has ever seen the light of day again. Only a torrent of air seeps in through an opening in the ceiling that is impossible to climb. Behind the bars are the most dangerous prisoners in the country. Hitmen with dozens of murders behind them, serving sentences of 700 years. Tonight, they watch from their cells like owls. They don't move. They don't utter a single word. They remain still with their arms crossed in silence. They transmit a ghostly air with their shaved heads and their well-pressed white uniforms. They shave their heads every 5 days. Almost all of them have tattoos. They have written the names of their gangs in ink, just in case there was any doubt about their way of life. They observe with a penetrating gaze, but nothing defiant. They are used to seeing people from outside, in street clothes. Their dull life unfolds among the gray uniforms of hooded police officers who drag them, arm in arm like cattle. Outside they were fearsome, they produced terror. Now radio, sadness. What is the real treatment like inside? Jail? An alleged prisoner of the CECOT named Miguel Angel, who says that in his case, the cliché to explain the darkness of the prison became literal from the moment I entered. Until I left, I didn't see the light of the sun. From mid-April of last year until the beginning of February, practically a year locked up in the CECOT prison about 2 hours west of the capital in a cell for 20 people, where more than 70 were held. Due to lack of space, the prisoners took turns sleeping sitting up in shifts. Of 2 or 3 hours, there was only one toilet. It was common for them to only receive 1 meal a day, 2 tortillas and a spoonful. Among Zelda's classmates, there was a diabetic, a 62-year-old man who owned a store and who cried a lot, Miguel says. Angel let him sleep sitting up all night while the rest remained standing. One day, he wouldn't wake up. Several people tried to move him, and he was freezing. When the guards arrived, he no longer had a pulse. Miguel Angel assures that. Also, only 2 or 3 times did a doctor come in to inject the insulin, which according to your investment, the family sent him. Every week, the lack of medical care in prisons is one more of the violations of basic rights denounced by organizations. Mikel Ongen says that another prisoner, a 21-year-old young man called Daniel, also died in that cell. He was desperate and shouted for medicine or complained of hunger and pain. The police responded by hitting him with batons, truncheons, or rifle butts. One day, they beat him so much that they beat him to death and dragged him out like an animal. An investigation by Human Rights Watch, which had access to a database from the Ministry of Justice, revealed that during the first 5 months of the state of emergency alone, from March to August, at least 32 people were recorded dead in custody, without clarifying the circumstances, mostly in the Mariona and CECOT prisons, where Miguel Angel was imprisoned. Another count from the Salvadoran organization Cristosal. This time, by the end of October, the death toll rose to 80. You just want to die. In addition to the beatings, Miguel also speaks of another method of torture. Hoses of water inside the cell were common. When the floor was wet, they activated the electric shotgun so that we could all be grabbed. Among the rest of the prisoners he lived with were people with tattoos from both the MS-1 and Barrio 18 gangs. He says they were the ones who were most often taken to the punishment cells. John didn't speak to them because he hated them. He felt that I was there for them. Collective prayers were common. Our support was faith. He says that one of the prisoners, a Christian evangelist, was the one who prayed the most for everyone. The greatest enemy one has inside is that of, you feel an immense emptiness and you just want to die. Miguel was arrested at the end of March, a few days after the state of emergency, which has been in place for a year. According to his version, it was revenge by police officers. A couple of years earlier, some officers had beaten his 10-year-old son because he didn't have ID when he was returning from buying tortillas. During the pandemic, he reported them, and a judge ended up convicting them in retaliation. 10 police officers showed up at his house with an arrest warrant. That same day, the beatings began, lasting until they got bored. They broke 2 of his ribs. But what hurt the most was this administrative worker, who until his arrest worked in an office, filling out Excel documents and making photocopies. He was presented to the press as a gang member, arrested on charges of extortion and homicide, and belonging to a terrorist organization. Bukele's operation is achieving its goal of reducing violence and dismantling gangs. However, it is also surrounded not only by allegations of human rights abuses, but also by an ever-growing siege of opacity. Nearly 63,000 detainees, according to a count at the end of January by the Minister of Justice and Security, Gustavo Villatoro. The figure is no coincidence. It corresponds to the estimated number of gang members in a country of just 6 million inhabitants since the beginning of the regime. Critical police officers have revealed that they are being imposed quotas to reach this symbolic number of arrests, which the president constantly refers to. Of the total number of inmates, 5% have been released, according to statements by the president himself. Human rights organizations in the country report that only a third of those detained have proven ties to gangs, and that types of penalties, such as belonging to a terrorist organization, are so broad and imprecise that they open the door to practically anyone. By the way, if you enjoy the video, we invite you to give us your like and activate the bell of notifications so you don't miss any of our new videos. We continue Dolores' story. Dolores was arrested by 5 police officers on May 6th of last year, accused of extortion. They told me that my children were collecting rent from businesses and I was collecting the money. This ordinance of the City Council of Cuscatancingo, a municipality on the northern outskirts of San Salvador, explains that they gave her a report with the charges, but she didn't sign it because she didn't have any proof. She asked to see a lawyer but didn't receive legal assistance. During the 5 months she spent incarcerated, Dolores, a union member, claims that her arrest was motivated by, leading several strikes to be given uniforms and a pay raise. At work, once at the police station, they put her in a cell with girls who were heavily smeared, some of whom had the MS tattooed on their foreheads. She says that she wasn't afraid because she has never belonged to anything. That's just like Miguel Ángel decided not to talk to the other detainees because keeping quiet gives you something and talking takes it away during the first night. Remember that a police officer told him, "Now you're the target. I can shoot you right now and say that I'm." They wanted to escape. On the first day in the Ilo Pango prison, half an hour from the capital, they lined her up with other prisoners. They stripped her naked. They made her bathe in a barrel in the yard with 20 other women. They put her through a scanner and checked the inside of her genitals in case she was carrying drugs or something like that. I suppose Dolores spent 22 days in a 150 square meters gallery with a tin roof and metal bars on the walls. There were more than 800 women there, according to her calculations. They slept squeezed together on the cement floor, each with their head at the height of the other's feet. The bathroom was a bucket and the shower was a hose. The food was dry bean paste. One of the prisoners, Esmeralda, had a tattoo of the infinity symbol onto the back of her neck. She remembers that everything she ate was vomited. She also suffered from diarrhea and ended up dying from dehydration when she lost the knowledge was carried by several inmates because she was chubby. The police took her away and never saw her again. They told us she died on the way to the hospital. Human rights organizations also denounce that the authorities are not reporting the deaths of prisoners. There are even complaints from family members who have found the bodies of their relatives. Detained in a mass grave, they still feel pain. She spent 3 more months in the Epaños prison, an hour and a half from the capital. There, they treated us a little better. We could go out to the yard for an hour. They gave us 3 meals, and sometimes some priests came in. During the entire time she was imprisoned, she had 2 virtual hearings without the presence of witnesses or lawyers. They released her in mid-September, and she has to report to the police station every 2 weeks. What is Nayib Bukele's relationship with Javier Milei? Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele confirmed that he will collaborate with the government of La Libertad. Progress is being made in the fight against insecurity. Although he considered that in Argentina, measures as drastic as those implemented in his country will not be necessary at a press conference. Before the elections in which Nayib Bukele triumphed, he stated that there are contacts with the current team of the Argentine president to cooperate in the fight against crime. However, the Salvadoran president clarified that the measures that the Argentine government should implement would have to be different because Argentina's insecurity problem is not as pressing as that of the Central American country. In the face of smaller problems, perhaps the remedy could be smaller. Bukele responded before a large audience of journalists at a hotel in the capital of El Salvador. On March 27th, the state of emergency in El Salvador will be 1 year old, and everything seems to indicate that Bukele and his Congress will do so. The majority of the people support Nayib Bukele, who obtained a landslide electoral victory despite concerns expressed by human rights organizations about abuses of power and arbitrary arrests. Given this situation, the CECOT prison, which has become a symbol of his government, along with his security policy, will continue to operate as it is. We have reached the end of this video, and if you liked it, I invite you to give us a like so we can continue making more videos like this one. Also, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. I wish you a great day. Until next time.